this is Ryan McClanahan with HistoryThroughCards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the story behind this particular 1960 Topps Mickey Mantle. And I always wanted a Mantle for my collection, and I always wanted this card for my collection. However, I never had the opportunity. And so when one came up in November of 2019, I well, let's just say it didn't go as well as I thought. And before I get into that story, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Mickey Mantle. Now, I know a lot of people have Mantle stories left and right, specifically the 1961 season or his rookie season. Um, I kind of forgot how good Mantle really was. However, he had 16 All-Star games to his name. Actually, it's 20 because specifically, I believe from like 1957 through 1962, there were actually two All-Star games, and one was a benefit game for the pension system for the ball players. Mantle also has three MVPs to his name as well, the 1956, 1957, and 1962. In fact, I kind of forgot about that 1962 MVP. The 1956 is the one that everyone kind of remembers. He also got the Triple Crown in 1956 as well. And in 1956, obviously a huge year for Mickey Mantle. He was the player of the year, and he also had three runner-ups as well for the MVP. Now, he came up as a 19-year-old on April 17th, 1951, and he led the league in runs five times. He had nine 100 plus run seasons. He also had led the league in home runs four times. He's got 536 home runs altogether, and he only has one year where he led the league in RBIs, and he has four 100 plus RBI seasons. He also has one gold glove to his name as well, which is kind of surprising to me, but it's a 1962. And he also has a 1956 AL batting title, and he only has one of those. I thought was a little strange to me. Mantle also has five seasons where he led the league in base on balls or walks, and he has 10 seasons where he has 100 or more. And he has a 298 lifetime batting average. He also led the league in strikeouts five times during his career, and he has eight seasons where he's got 100 plus strikeouts a season, or 1,733. But his 8,102 plate appearances, I guess you can see that that's not that bad. I hate strikeouts. I really do. There's nothing I hate more than a strikeout. And unfortunately, a lot of these ball players today strike out over 100 times a season. Just look at Trevor Story. I mean, oh my God. Um, it's nothing new, I guess. But like when you look at like Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig or even Dwight Evans, like those guys, they're not striking out as much as the guys are today. There's no discipline at the plate, which really bothers me. In any event, in 1960, Mickey Mantle played 153 games. He had 119 runs, which he led the league in that year. He had 145 hits, 40 home runs. Again, he led the league. 94 RBI, 111 base on balls, and he had a 275 batting average for that year. Not bad, not bad. But you know what? I think he could have been better. In fact, Ted Williams always said he could have been better. And one thing that I remember that Ted Williams always told Mantle to lay off that first pitch, and he never did. So there was something also about Mickey Mantle during his early career, which happened during the 1951 World Series in the fifth inning of the second game, where Willie Mays hit a fly ball, and Mickey Mantle ended up getting his cleat caught in a grate, and it tore up his knee, and he was out for the rest of the World Series. And it was actually Joe DiMaggio's ball Now, the one thing is, this always kind of bothered him, and his knees were deteriorated so much over the years that he ended up going to first base. And between the greenies and the alcohol and the women, uh, that really, I think, hampered his career pretty badly. He could have been a lot better. His stats could have been a lot better. Again, I don't know what greenies do to you because I obviously have never taken them. I don't do drugs, just baseball cards, which, yeah, okay, I guess that's like a drug too, especially when you're going to a card show. Anyway, um, speaking of card shows, when I went to the Shriners in November of 2019, I was kind of just minding my own business, looking around, and I come across a 1957 Topps Gene Baker error. And this is a card I've always heard about, and I always wanted it for my collection. And I'm not going to say I'm disappointed with that purchase because I did actually purchase that card, and I was kind of surprised about the error itself. Now, I've already done a video on Gene Baker. I really like his career, and you guys can check out that video if you want. Right next to the Gene Baker card was this particular card, and I looked at it and I passed it up and I went home. But something kept on nagging at me, and I ended up really kind of like tossing and turning that night. And the only thing I could think of was this card and why I didn't pick it up. And it was, again, about 150. And I just kind of like I was in agony over this. I really was because it was really stupid not to have picked up the card, and it was a card that I really wanted badly for my collection. I said the only card I had of Mickey Mantle's was a 1958 Topps All Star, and I actually like the All Star cards from 1958, and those are actually really a decent purchase if you're just getting into vintage and you want to grab some Hall of Famers from the 1950s. I highly recommend going after the 58 Topps All Star. The All Star mantle in that set is not expensive at all. In fact, I paid $22 for it, and actually, it's probably in excellent condition or so. However, I think I got the better of that deal, and I felt kind of bad about it too because it was from a friend who I always did business with. So I flipped him a few extra dollars in another purchase that I didn't need to do, but I did it anyway. Getting back to this mantle here, I woke up in a sweat and I was tossing and turning that entire night, just kind of agonizing over this stupid decision. And here's the thing is that I didn't go with my gut. And that's the thing that I think gets a lot of collectors, a lot of people. This isn't necessarily a collecting thing. This is a human thing. And a lot of people don't listen to their gut instinct, their gut feeling. It's usually the first feeling that they have. And, I can understand like some collectors have said that they really regretted not making a purchase when they should have or selling a card that they should not have, and it's always kind of gnawed at them, and that's what was going on here. And so the thing is, I had no plans initially to go back to the show the following day, but because I had known that I should have picked up this card, it probably would have been my only chance that I actually did make it back to the show. And I raced to the dealer to see if the card was still there. And fortunately, it was. And I ended up making a deal for the card for a lot less than 150, but it does have a little bit of issues with it. Um, and the one funny thing about this set that I really like is that it's the first time you have Franklin Gothic on the nameplate here in large letters, and that was actually a design from Morris Fuller Benton in 1902. Bud Renshaw developed this wide version in 1952, and it's what we see here. So this is the condensed version that came out in 1903 on the bottom here, where it says New York Yankees outfield, and the bottom of it is actually alternative Gothic. And again, Morris Fuller Benton also designed that font. Altogether, the design is actually mid-century modern, which came out in the 1920s in Germany, and it kind of meandered over to Chicago in the 1930s and 40s when a lot of the artists had to flee Germany. Anyway, I also have a an article on that particular design, if you will, and you can find it in the 1959 Topps football set that I did an article on my site. So whenever I'm looking at a card, I'm not just looking at the ball player, I'm looking at the design as well. If you guys have known me for any length of time, you'll know that I don't collect cards just for the value. In fact, if I had to pick my reasons why I collect cards, value is at the bottom, if there at all. Um, for the most part, I collect cards because A, it's a great challenge. I've never seen all the cards out there, and I've been in this hobby for forever. And there's always something that you can come across that you've never seen before. I always say to you guys too that seeing a card in hand is a lot different than seeing it on the internet. There's a different feeling that you get. It's kind of like artwork too, right? So if you see a great piece of artwork, you're going to get a different experience than you're going to see it online. So as value goes with Mickey Mantle, it's kind of really interesting because um, I have noticed if you followed the values of Mantle's cards, they really kind of spiked in the late 1970s. And the first time that I'm aware of that Mantle's cards went for about $100,000 was when Walter Hall of Hall's Nostalgia purchased a 52 Topps Mantle, again for $100,000 in, I believe, 1977 or 78. I kind of want to say 1978. And at the time, a lot of collectors and dealers picked this up and they started making fun of him. Now, a lot of people said that he was just overboard with that purchase and it didn't make a whole lot of sense because it wasn't really that expensive per se. Um, and so anyone buying the card for 100 grand was just unheard of. I mean, nobody did that before, but I'm wondering if he actually knew what was going to happen to the card years later. Again, I don't know what happened to that card. I never talked to Walter about it. I knew Walter for years. He's a great guy, helped me out quite a bit with my collection. He and his sons, Dave and Joel, they ran Hall's Nostalgia for years and years. But that was the first time I think I heard about a 52 Topps Mantle going for 100 grand. Now that particular card can go for I think 3.5 million or more, maybe, which is kind of astounding to me because that's not really a difficult card. I see it all the time. Um, I think what's happened over the years is that it has grown to notoriety so much so that it's kind of like a cult status now, and that has really kind of grown the value. The other thing that has made that card, or Mickey Mantle's cards in particular, more valuable over the decades is Alan Mr. Mint Rosen. And what he used to do was he'd buy up every single Mantle card that he could find when he was in New York. And he kind of like tried to corner the market, if you will. In fact, he may have in the sense that he picked up just a ton of 1952 Tops. And that was, I think, in 1985. He had that famous find. And he always would talk about that find too. He's very proud of it. And I think when I was at the National, his 52 Tops Mantle went up for auction. And I forget exactly if it has sold or if it did sell. Um, and again, unfortunately, Mr. Mint has passed away. Mr. Mint is a guy who was either looked at as good for the hobby or bad for the hobby. There was no real in between. The first time that I started to notice in the hobby that Mantle's cards started going up was about 1981 in Baseball Cards magazine. There was an article which stated basically uh, Mickey Mantle's cards are now going for $60. And I didn't write down how much $60 is worth now in 1981, but I think it was quite substantial. At the time too, in the 1980s, you could pick up a 1933 Gaudy Babe Ruth for about 60 to $125, and it didn't matter which one. And that was probably up until like the mid 1980s. But you have to kind of put all the stuff into perspective too. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys today about was the 1960 Topps Mickey Mantle here. I also wanted to ask you guys too if you've ever had any deals where you missed out on and you regretted either buying a card that you knew you shouldn't have or selling a card that you knew you shouldn't have or passing one up. And we've all done it. I think I have obviously regretted a few cards that I did not pick up, and one of them, my biggest regret in the hobby, is not picking up a 1962 Flair Jerry West for 175 in excellent plus condition. Um, Instead, I picked up a 1961 Flair Wilt Chamberlain for 200. uh, I'm not complaining per se. I'm not sure why I didn't pick up that card. I should have, and I've regretted it ever since. But if I had a time machine, I think I would go back to that day and pick up that card. Um, but yeah, I mean, I really don't like when I hear collectors who have been ripped off or have regretted a purchase or sold a card. Um, it's not a good feeling, obviously. This is my story that I wanted to tell you guys, and hopefully, if you come across a card that is either extremely rare, you might not have an opportunity to pick it up again just because it is extremely rare. But this is again where you need to kind of do a little bit of homework here to figure out what card you want in your collection. Is it um, something that is normally affordable? Can you find it again? And sometimes, like the Mickey Mantle here, I remember, his 1956 tops was not that expensive prior to the pandemic. I think you could pick it up for about $400 or so, which okay, it's 400 bucks, but now it's just kind of like skyrocketed. It's really kind of unaffordable for the majority of collectors compared to $400. Uh, Mickey Mantle is an expensive purchase. So the 58 Topps All Star, I think, is something that you guys could afford fairly easily. And I think the majority of those cards are going for anywhere between 80 to $150 for the All Star card. Prior to that, I think you could also pick up a 54 Bowman Mantle for fairly cheap money too. Um, I think again that card was selling at about $400 or 350 or so. But Mantle is extremely popular, and he always will be, just like Ted Williams. And the funny thing too is that in New York, in the 1950s, you had three of the greatest center fielders in baseball: Mickey Mantle, obviously, Willie Mays, and Duke Snider. And a lot of people kind of forget about Duke Snider, but he was fantastic, and his cards are pretty affordable too. Willie Mays, he was affordable. There are some cards that you can still grab from Willie Mays, especially his latter career, because he played, I think, 23 years or more. So he's got a lot of cards out there. Mantle, I think you can pick up a few 1960s Topps cards for fairly cheap money. except maybe his 65 tops, which appears to be uh, on everybody's want list, and including mine. For some reason, there's something about that 65 top set, the great design. And in fact, the 1960 design here is the first type that you're going to see from tops. They didn't have anything like this prior to that, and it is purely mid-century modern, and it goes with the times. And for a lot of cards, you can kind of tell what era they're from just by the design. If you study that, you'll know exactly from what era they're from. Even if you don't know who the player is, you can kind of gather when it was issued. But again, a little bit of education, it goes a long way here, guys. And I learned quite a bit from this particular card. As I said, I go with my gut instinct first because that's usually going to not steer you in the wrong direction. So, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it as always. Leave a comment in the section below, give a like if you wish, and let me know your stories about this if you have any. I always love to hear what you guys have to say, and I will talk to you later. Bye.